guys, welcome back. We got another video prepared for you today. What we're going to be doing is we'll be looking at our 2025 to 2026 Ole Miss Rebels football team. We're going to completely break down this team, look at the coaching staff, the rosters, look at the offense, defense, and what we're going to try to do is try to predict the outcome for every single game by game breakdown, and we'll be basing this off of what Vegas predicts early season-wise to how each of these games is going to go, which ones they're going to win, which ones they're going to lose, and which games could also be potential toss-ups as we look at the early prediction side of things. First things first, though, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, by all means, drop them below. I'm going to respond to every single one of them. We're going over every team in the offseason. We have all the offseason news going on. We have the NFL draft just happened. We have college football, transfer portal, spring football going on right now. We have the regular season once that starts. Once the season goes, we go over every game every single week. We break down the best bets, the money lines, the spreads, the over-unders. First things first, though, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. This is going to be a really fun video looking at this Ole Miss team because there's a lot of pieces that have transitioned, that have moved since where they were last year. Don't forget, last season, this team had the #1 transfer portal class coming in. They had a lot of hype. They have Lane Kiffin as the head coach. You know, with the Lane Kiffin team, you're going to be in the headlines. You're going to score points. That's exactly what they did. They brought over guys like Nolan. This team was stacked. They had a top 10 defense in the nation, top 10 in sacks, top 10 in tackles for a loss, top 10 in quarterback pressures. They had a top 10 offense, actually a top 5 offense in the nation, led by Jackson Dart. They had Trey Harris, but all those guys are gone. So now you're looking at a lot of new pieces coming in, new quarterbacks, new wide receiver core, younger running back room. There's a lot of things up for grabs here, but with that transition, Ole Miss has been recruiting well. They've been working the portal. You know that they retooled here at the skill positions. You're going to have guys like Austin Simmons coming in. Austin Simmons, a lot of hype for this guy coming onto this Ole Miss team. This is a quarterback who can do a little bit of everything. He's mobile, but it's what he can do with his arm that has a lot of Ole Miss fans excited. Looking at the running back room, there's going to be guys like Diggs, Thomas, Taylor. Looking at our quarterback, obviously Austin Simmons in the wide receiver room. This is where Lane Kiffin, where his play calling is really going to shine here. Stribling, Ray, Cunningham, Wallace, Odom, Watkins. There's a lot of unproven guys here, but there's talented guys. There's guys that are going to fit perfectly into this up-tempo, spread offensive scheme that Lane Kiffin wants the Rebels to run. But what about that defense? Like I said, a top 10 defense last season. How's that defense going to turn out with some of the pieces leaving? We know they're still going to have a good defense, but they might not be as good as they were last year. So look for Ole Miss and that offense to potentially be leading the way here. That's what might be making the difference for this team. You might not be able to push the ball vertically down the field as much. You might have to rely a little more on that run game, control the time of possession, control the clock, control this game, keep your defense off the field. They're going to be a good defense. They just might not be a top 10, top 5 defense coming into this season. Lane Kiffin, in all honesty, he is one of my most favorite coaches in college football. He's an exciting guy to watch on the field. But when you're looking at the schedule, this is obviously an SEC schedule. Last season, Ole Miss finished this season 10-3, just barely missed out on a playoff spot. It was that loss to Florida at the very end. It's the games you're not supposed to lose that they always seem to lose. The one they're supposed to win, like Georgia, that's when they come out. They are ready to play. They are hyped up here. But you want to make sure to avoid those upsets. This is an SEC schedule. You know it's going to be a brutal schedule, especially once you get into the meat of the in-conference schedule. Looking at the schedule there up on the board, you're going to see that we have those 3 stars. You have the Blue Stars. That's the game that Vegas right now predicts they're going to win that one. They're going to be favored early preseason-wise. Red one is the ones that Vegas thinks they're going to be losing preseason. And then the yellow is the toss-ups. That's the key games, because even if you lose all the games you're projected to lose, as long as you take those toss-ups, this is at worst a 10-2 team, which means coming out of the SEC that they are going to be a playoff-worthy team. This might be the season that Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels finally make the playoffs, and they can definitely make some sounds there. They can make some ripples. So let's start going over this schedule game by game. And don't forget, guys, I'm not saying they're going to win or lose these games. It's what Vegas is predicting preseason-wise as of right now. They're going to kick things off Saturday, August 30th versus the Georgia State Panthers coming to Oxford, Mississippi. Obviously, this game is going to be a blowout. It's going to be a curb stomping. But when you have a lot of new starters here in this scheme, you're going to want a couple cupcake games, kind of get the wheels going, get some of the rust knocked off. Your first game of the season with this system, You want your offense to be firing on all cylinders once you get into in-conference play. So obviously they're going to curb stomp. They're going to blow Georgia State out of the water. That's an easy win. Then after that, Saturday, September 6th at the Kentucky Wildcats. This game in Lexington, Kentucky. If you've forgotten, this was one of those games that snuck up on Ole Miss last season. They did lose to Kentucky. I think it was on a field goal, if I remember right, at the very end. Was an awful loss. Was a sign of potentially some of those upsets that were going to be coming along. But still, we know that Ole Miss is way more talented than Kentucky. It's not going to be close, and this game's going to be personal. They're going to want revenge. There's the revenge factor here versus the Kentucky Wildcats. You know Stoops, he's always going to have a disciplined team. He's always going to have a good defense, but there's a massive talent disparity here. Ole Miss is going to be favored this one, and they should win it, making up for last season. So now they're 2-0. After that, Saturday, September 13th, you have the Arkansas Razorbacks. You never want to overlook Arkansas. Usually the last couple seasons, they do lose a lot of games, but they're usually very close 1-2 possession loss games. Usually they lose it at the very end of the fourth quarter. They didn't have a bad defense last season. They actually had a pretty good offense. They can score some points. They can make this game competitive. They're going to make a fight of it. They will be on the road here coming to Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss should be able to dominate this game. A lot of these games are going to come down to in the trenches. That's where Lane Kiffin's been doing a lot of his best work, stacking up the offensive line, working on that front seven for the defense. They're going to be favored here to win this game. And then after that, we're moving on to our Saturday, September 20th game, the Tulane Green Wave coming to Oxford, Mississippi. This is going to be what? 1, 2, 3. 3 out of the first 4 games are at home. Very good start for Ole Miss here. Tulane was not a bad team last season, was a really good team 2 to 3 years ago, but obviously they lost everyone. They lost their coaching staff. Practically the entire team went into the transfer portal. This was a team that if they had their full team, could have potentially been a really competitive team. Could have been one of those teams who could have potentially on the road here been upsetting Ole Miss, but it is just not going to happen this season. I'm going to go with Ole Miss continuing to roll here. They should be favored here. They should win this one handedly. And then one of their first big tests of the season, Saturday, September 27th. Still, it is a home game nonetheless. You have the LSU Tigers coming to town. This has all the makings to potentially be a top 10 versus top 10 matchup. This could potentially even be the game day type game. You have LSU Tigers. This is Brian Kelly's team. They have Nussmeier back at quarterback. You know, under Brian Kelly, the way it's been the last couple seasons, LSU has been one of the best teams at producing wide receivers. We know they're going to have a good offense. We know they're going to have a loaded wide receiver room. They're going to have the quarterback, the running backs, the wide receivers. They're going to have the offensive line. They're going to have a stacked defensive front seven. Year one under Blake Baker, this defense took massive strides forward. One of the better defenses in the SEC. Not saying that they had a top 20 defense, but they were top 30, top 35 in 1 year under Blake Baker. They should continue to improve, which could potentially spell some trouble here for Ole Miss. How fired up is their offense at this point? Young quarterback, it might be a lot to expect him to be able to beat a senior-laden LSU team. I'm not saying that it's impossible. If they beat LSU, would not surprise me in any way whatsoever, but I do think that LSU will be coming into this game as the Vegas favorite right now. So I do have Ole Miss losing this one to LSU, but if they win those other games, still right now, they are still 4-1. The entire season is in front of them. And then after that, Saturday, October 4th, they're going to have a bye week. That's exactly what you need. They have some pretty decent games. You want to get some rest here. You might be a little banged up. You're getting deeper into SEC play, so you want to make sure that you're keeping all of your players fresh. Then after that, Saturday, October 11th, one of those rare out-of-conference across the country games, the Washington State Cougars. They lost their quarterback. They lost their last 2 quarterbacks. They lost their coach. Washington State, John Mateer is now going to be the quarterback for Oklahoma, who they'll be seeing a little later here. So they're going to be replacing a massive amount of pieces. This is not going to be the offense. They actually had a top 25 offense last season. A lot of those guys are gone. Look for Ole Miss coming off of a potential loss to LSU in that bye week where they tweaked a couple things that weren't working. They should be able to roll here. They should be able to roll easy. They're going to be the Vegas favorite. Then Saturday, October 18th, this game, if you're a college football fan, this has to be one of the most exciting games of the year. We are going to be at the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, Georgia. This was one of the best games last season. Don't forget, Ole Miss won this game versus Georgia. They won it handily last year. That defense was getting after it, especially the front seven. Georgia's going to want some revenge here, just like Ole Miss wanted revenge versus Kentucky. Georgia's going to want it here. But we have 2 different quarterbacks playing. We are going to have Simmons here facing off versus Gunnar Stockton for Georgia. By this point, Georgia's offense should have hit a little bit of traction here. He's a more mobile quarterback than Carson Beck. Beck. They're going to have a running game that they want to be a lot better than last season. They led the nation in drop passes last year. They put a lot in the transfer portal for wide receivers, bringing over Zachariah Brandt. So this is going to be a little bit of a different Georgia offense, but it's also going to be a different Georgia defense as well, and a different offense and defense for Ole Miss. So which team's going to come out on top here? Both teams want to win this game, especially Ole Miss here. You're going to want to take advantage of this game. You want to beat one of the best teams in the SEC to potentially cement yourself as one of the front runners to maybe be fighting in the SEC championship, just like you had that option all of last year. Till you drop that Florida game, you are still alive in that race. Georgia, very, very difficult 2025-26 football schedule coming out of the SEC. They're definitely going to want to win this game just because, honestly, they cannot afford to lose it. But as of right now, looking at these teams, we are expecting a much improved Georgia at the skill positions and on the total offense, total defense. A lot of turnovers last season. This team should be a lot better. They should have enough talent here to edge or eke out a game. If Ole Miss again beats them back-to-back seasons, this would not be surprising either. But we're going to go with Georgia being the early Vegas favorite to win this game. So worst case scenario, Ole Miss right now, you were sitting at 5-2. No reason to panic. Everything is still in front of you. If you get 10 wins coming out of the SEC, you're going to be making the playoffs. So no reason to panic too early. Then after that, Saturday, October 25th, to me, this is a under-the-radar, extremely competitive game. This is at the Oklahoma Sooners, Norman, Oklahoma, very difficult place to play. We mentioned John Mateer. Mateer is going to be the quarterback here. He's a mobile quarterback. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He can run for 800 to 1,000 yards. He can throw for 3,500 yards. His name could be potentially mentioned in the Heisman candidacy this season. He was the number one transfer portal quarterback in the nation. He's in the same offensive scheme. His offensive coordinator from Washington State also transferred to Oklahoma, so he's going to be in the same playbook here. You know Brent Venables, he's going to have a very talented defense. We have this game marked as a early preseason toss-up. We're not saying that Ole Miss is going to lose it. It's just both of these teams are uber talented, so talented to where the outcome to this game could honestly go either way as of right now. So it is marked a toss-up. And the schedule's not going to get any easier after that. I feel bad here. We are getting into the meat of the schedule. Saturday, November 1st. As you're starting to get to the end of the season, these games are really starting to be a lot more impactful, and the injuries are also starting to add up. We're going to have the South Carolina Gamecocks here coming to Oxford. They're going to be very happy to have a home game here. We all know the Gamecocks. They came out of nowhere last season, had a great season, almost made it into the Final 12 for the playoffs. It's going to be a very talented team, but don't forget, unlike last season, they're not going to be sneaking up on anyone this year. They're a team that everyone is going to be expecting to play well. Everyone's going to be bringing their best to play them on Saturdays. We know they're going to have a top 25 offense, top 25 defense. This team was very physical. They ran the bell great last season. Sellers was a great quarterback. You have a lot of pressure here on Beamer to actually live up to the expectations. That's the big question mark. How does this team respond? They responded great last season, but the expectations were low. Now they're high. Will they be able to meet the expectations coming into the 25-26 season? I think no matter what, Ole Miss is just as talented as the Gamecocks, vice versa. This is one of those games could come down to quarterback play, could come down to defenses, could come down to one single play decided at the line of scrimmage. 1 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 play could be the deciding factor in this game. Both of these teams, to me, they kind of cancel out one another. That's why we have this one marked as a toss-up. This has the potential to be a top 10 on top 10 matchup, but also who could be playing here could be for positioning in the SEC, maybe even fighting for a final playoff spot. So you're getting to the point here to where these games are becoming very meaningful, and who is winning these games could be cementing themselves in that final 12. There's a lot riding on that. We have it as a toss-up. Both teams more than capable of beating each other. It's just who's going to be playing the best on this day and who's going to have the healthiest team by the time that we get to November 1st. And then after that awful, god-awful gauntlet of potentially 3 straight top 25 teams, you're going to have the Citadel Bulldogs. This is a game you want to just rest some guys, work on some things, get the backup some reps. Ole Miss, they're going to come out the gate. They're going to beat the brakes off of them. This is going to be by far like a 30, 40-point win, and we have that obviously marked as a Ole Miss win, and they'll be the favorites there. Then after that, Saturday, November 15th, the Florida Gators coming to Oxford, Mississippi. Seems like there's a lot of home games this season. Florida Gators, this game is another personal one, but this one is going to be personal for the Rebels. This is a team that, to me, knocked them out of playoff contention last season. They want some revenge here. Florida, going to be a lot of pressure on Billy Napier. They're going to have DJ Lagway. Hopefully he is healthy at this point. We all want to watch some great football. There's a lot here riding on the Gators. Can they get back to 8 wins and including a bowl win from last season. There's a lot of pressure here. They can't take a step back, or there's potentially going to be some people losing their job. This game is important. It's important for both teams. If Ole Miss is sitting at the point where they already have 2 losses, they cannot afford to lose this game under any circumstances. They have to win it. They are going to be the better team to me talent-wise, offense, defense, veterans, and experience, but you have to respect just the craftiness of the Florida Gators, and that is a tough, hard-fighting team. They love playing for Billy Napier. They're going to make this game competitive, and they're going to be very crafty to get the win here. But I think you got to mark it as a toss-up. If you force me to have to pick a team to win this game, I'm going to go with Ole Miss Rebels pulling this one off. They lost it last season to me. They are due to win it this year. But I respect the way Florida the last 2 seasons has played for Napier's second half of each season. They want to play for the guy. They're playing for wins, and they are also playing for his job, technically. They're going to be doing the same thing again this season. Then Saturday, November 22nd, you have a bye week. This bye week, they really kind of got screwed with this. It should have been earlier in the season. Who wants it right before the Mississippi State game? But it is what it is. After that, you get a bye week to concentrate on Mississippi State Bulldogs. Going to Starkville to play the Bulldogs. This was a game that Ole Miss won handedly last year. Jeff Lebby's team had to completely flip the roster last season, bring in new quarterbacks, bring in a whole new offense, whole new defense, and they're bringing in a lot of new pieces this season as well. But there is also a massive talent disparity between these two teams in the same state. Ole Miss is going to win this game. They're going to cruise to this game, and they're going to knock it out. They're going to be heavy, heavy favorites here by Vegas. So looking at our total schedule here, we have 7 games that are easily marked as preseason wins, 3 games that are marked as toss-ups, 2 games that are marked as losses. If you win the toss-ups, you're 10-2. You could even win one of those ones that you are the underdog in and lose a toss-up. You're still 10-2. No matter what, a 10-2 Ole Miss team coming out of the SEC, I've said it several times, they will be making the playoffs. Ole Miss, they might take a step back this season. They might take a step forward because they technically didn't reach their full potential last season. So if they play the same way they played last year, they are still in contention to make one of those final 12 playoff spots. So, guys, that's our predictions. That's our schedule breakdown for the Ole Miss Rebels for the 25-26 season. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I will respond. If you want to join any of our member teams, look in the comments. I have a pinned comment down there. You can sign up and join us there. Thanks.